Twitter CEO Elon Musk was in the nation's capital last week during his tour in D.C. He visited the White House and Capitol Hill. These visits included meetings with several powerful Republicans who are investigating the Biden administration's efforts to influence the major social media platforms, as well as big tech's alleged censorship of conservatives. That's according to Politico. Musk met with Speaker Kevin McCarthy, House Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan, and House Oversight and Accountability Chair James Comer, according to a committee spokesperson.
The Twitter CEO also attended meetings with two top White House officials on Friday to discuss the advancement of electric vehicle production. All right, Mr. Musk goes to Washington ostensibly to talk about how his platform can be fair to both parties. What do you make of this?
That's what he said he wants. He wants Twitter to be fair to both parties. I think most people would agree that that's a noble goal, that they would like Twitter to be fair to both parties. It's a place for political dialogue. In fact, if Twitter has a differentiating feature about it among the social media sites, it is one disproportionately where political actors and policy people congregate to discuss things. Ideally, it should be fair to both players, to both sides and all sides. So I think it's fine for him to make that clear that that's the goal to political people who are involved in the regulation of Twitter. I also see that there was some more recent news that he's interested in adding a payment sort of software to Twitter, both to pay to use it and also to facilitate payment transactions. He's going to need regulatory approval for that. I'm going to guess that came up at the meeting. What can we do to kind of grease the wheels on that process? Obviously, that's kind of how it works.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. The Twitter files have really focused on the idea that there has been untoward lobbying by the government of these social media platforms to enact a content moderation regime that is sympathetic to one political side or another, principally the Democrats. Is the lobbying itself the issue? And if so, is there a difference when it's just out in the open? You know, is it right and good for Elon Musk to be talking directly with members of whomever's administration about its internal decision-making and how it plans to do content moderation? I
think in an ideal world, they wouldn't do any of that because Congress would have very little sway or power over what's going on social media, or there would be just there'd be rules and they're enforced equally and they're transparent and obvious, and so there's no room for like individual personalities to have different policies toward one or the other. Unfortunately, that's not the world we live in because both Democrats and Republicans cannot help themselves from complaining about social media or complaining about various policies or hauling the people involved in those policies before Congress, commenting on everything going on, saying it should be different, and then much more problematic than that, even though I would argue that is problematic itself, much more problematic is that behind the scenes, various federal bureaucracies have seen fit to reach out to Twitter and Facebook and Google and presumably other companies and try to influence what their policies are.
Right. So, I mean, is there anything, I'm just asking, I'm trying to work this through, because on some level it's the way things are, and I'm not trying to be unfairly critical of Elon Musk in this context, but there does seem to me to be some tension between saying, I don't like the idea that the government is lobbying Twitter, and then making oneself available, taking this big Washington trip to say, pitch me on how basically you think this platform should be, could be more equal in your eyes. Like, is this the business of the government at all to weigh in? Do they have good suggestions? Might they have actually good ideas? And if they do, is the implication that all of the lobbying that was happening in the previous Twitter regime was untoward?
Yeah, I think it's okay to point that out. And right, ideally, you would have you'd have like an iron wall of separation here between the government and social media companies. But I mean, we live in a world where Democratic representatives sent letters to AT&T and Comcast and other people saying, we noticed you're carrying Newsmax care to comment, maybe do something about that?
Yeah.
Which is just so, to me, beyond the pale.
And so the response to that is to say, let's formalize the lobbying efforts. I'm just trying to understand.
Let's take a meeting with Kevin McCarthy to see what he has to say. Is, I think, not as offensive on its face. Obviously, if Kevin McCarthy is in that meeting saying, so we're going to have antitrust regulation being discussed in this committee, this committee, this committee, unless you do X, Y, and Z, then that's the exact same thing I'm complaining about, and that should not take place.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the complaint is shifting from the idea that lobbying is bad to lobbying by Democrats is bad.
Well, both are bad. The companies are begging for mercy, or they should be begging for mercy. They're being pushed and pulled and prodded and by both sides, and they can't make anyone happy because they're being asked to do contradictory things. I mean, that is the fundamental issue. They are being pushed by Democrats and by federal bureaucracies to restrict much more content, and they're being pushed by Republicans to restrict way less content. And there's just no way to satisfy both those demands.
Yeah, well, another reason that people are, I think, somewhat concerned is, as we've discussed at length on this show, there has been some inconsistency with which Elon Musk has applied his new content moderation regime. Most recently, a few days ago, there was a story here, it was reported by Business Insider, that a leaked internal message appears to show that Elon Musk specifically ordered the Twitter staff to suspend a left-leaning activist account. Anti-fascist activist Chad Loder's Twitter account was suspended in November, and a leaked internal Twitter message suggests that Elon Musk directly ordered the suspension. Bloomberg reported the internal message as saying, quote, suspension, direct request from Elon Musk. So given that, coupled with his recent comments about how he prefers the Republican Party and the right, it leads people to question whether or not this really is about making the platform fair and equal, which I think is a legitimate goal, one that did not exist under the last Twitter regime for sure, or whether this is about simply enacting revenge, and doing so in a way that frankly isn't even ideologically consistent with for the right, with people like Kanye being censured for reasons that don't necessarily follow protocol, et cetera.
Well, right. I've never said Elon Musk is beyond criticism. I don't agree with all the decisions he's made. Actually, right now, I'm seeing him getting some pushback from various people, some on the right, some they're free speech, maybe free speech left people. I mean, these are all people who are hard to categorize at this point. There's been a lot of criticism of this Eliza Blue figure. Probably I should talk about that in more depth when I myself do more research on it. It's a very fraught subject, but this is someone who portrayed themselves as a survivor of sex trafficking and has been, I think, a very informal advisor to Elon Musk. It seemed to be one of those people who can get his attention very easily, who can get him to reply to her, talking about the threat of sex trafficking. There has been a lot of questions. And then it now looks like she has also allegedly been able to just get critics of her silenced and and kicked off the platform. A lot of people, she made a recent appearance on Tim Pool's show. A lot of people, including people I have a lot of respect for, like Katie Herzog, Michael Tracy, others, and then some on the right, are raising questions about her background, which sounds very sketchy, and that
I saw
it has
Katie
nothing
tweeting.
actually to do with sex trafficking.
Yeah.
And but she seems to, and I'm using cautious language here because I don't want to get in trouble. I haven't done all of the research on this one yet. This is a very rabbit hole kind of subject to get into, but it seems like she's had Elon Musk's ear and has used that to silence some dissent, and that's bad.
That's been the issue the whole time. Look, if I were able to dictate Elon Musk banning people, if you were able to dictate Elon Musk banning people, it would still be a bad thing, even if it's in our own self-interest. Because you cannot move through the world just hoping that the benevolent dictator is on your side. That is not a strategy with any longevity. I strongly
agree with that. I've been trying to say that to a lot of conservatives who have responded to this very worrisome collusion between big government and big tech by saying, well, we need our own commissions and our own bureaucracy and our own to punish, to go after these people or to change the rules. I'm like, but that's just, those things will eventually be used against you. It's a very like, Boromir taking the ring and saying, no, we must use it. Give Gondor the weapon of the enemy. But no, the lesson is you're supposed to destroy it, not try to use it for your own ends.
Yeah. I do know. I watched Black Adam over the weekend, and there's a similar kind of a.
Was it good?
Crown of Power. It was fine. It was not bad. It was a little long, but you know.
We've finally gotten around to She-Hulk. We hadn't done that one yet.
How was it?
I'm enjoying it.
Really?
Yeah, I know people got a lot of criticism, I think.
Do you think it was that
fine.
unfair Ghostbusters, it's because they're women criticism, or was it actually kind of cheesy?
No, it's definitely cheesy. It's not my favorite, but I like the actress, Tatiana Maslany, a lot.
Better or worse than oh gosh, what's the one with the witch? And it's a series.
WandaVision? Oh no, it's not nearly as good as WandaVision. Okay. WandaVision had sort of literary qualities. WandaVision is great.
Okay, all right.
You want me to do that? Before this devolves into a Marvel ranking, we can go there. We can go there.
All right, we'll have more Rising for you after this.